Okay, so imagine this. Someone hands you the keys, right, and says, you get to design a church. But not just any church. We're talking about one that truly captures, I don't know, the essence of your whole faith. Like, where do you even begin?
Hmm. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm.
Is it all about, like, those grand arches and the stained glass windows? Or is there something more, something deeper that we should be focusing on?
And that, my friend, is a perfect segue into what we're diving into today.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We've got this Seventh-day Adventist Bible study lesson all prepped, and guess what it's about? Rebuilding the temple, ancient Jerusalem.
Okay, before anyone tunes out thinking this is about to get all, history lecture-y on you, I promise you it goes way beyond just, like, bricks and mortar.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it more like uncovering these timeless truths, right? About faith, about community, about what really matters when things get tough.
And speaking of community, for those who aren't familiar, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which has a global membership of over 21 million people, is built on some, well, pretty specific beliefs rooted in, you guess it, the Bible.
Yeah, like their name suggests, right? The Sabbath, that's Saturday for anyone new here. And of course, the second coming of Christ are kind of their like cornerstones. And actually, it's interesting because Seventh-day Adventists observe the Sabbath a bit differently. It's not just Sunday service. It's about setting aside this dedicated time from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, totally focused on rest and reconnecting with God.
And that's what makes this whole design a church question so fascinating. Are we putting more emphasis on the outward appearance, those, shall we say, cushioned pews, so to speak? Or are we prioritizing the foundational beliefs that actually shape who we are?
It's like choosing between a flashy car and a reliable workhorse. Sure, one might turn heads, but the other one, that's what gets you where you need to go. And that, my friend, is a truth that applies whether we're talking ancient temples or building a community today.
Exactly. It all comes down to identifying those non-negotiables, those core elements that truly give a group its sense of purpose, its identity. And as we'll see, those elements, they really shine through when they're put to the test.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock a bit, yeah. We're in ancient Jerusalem. The Jewish people, they've finally returned after years of exile, back on home turf, and let me tell you, they are ready to rebuild their temple.
Oh, you can just feel that energy, that excitement leaping off the pages of, well, the source material,
Yeah.
This isn't just about construction. It's about reclaiming their heritage, rebuilding their identity.
Oh, totally. It's like you can practically hear the cheers erupting. We're home, let's do this. But as anyone who's ever like tackled a DIY project knows, things don't always go according to plan.
Yeah.
It's like, when you're starting a new project,
Mm.
all that energy and then bam, life throws a wrench in the works. Ever been there? That point where the initial, yeah, let's do this kind of fizzles out when it gets real.
Oh, the classic easier said than done scenario, right? And that's where our story takes a bit of a turn. The source, drawing from the book of Ezra, it paints this really vivid picture of like a roller coaster of emotions for these temple builders.
Yeah, you can practically feel the momentum building, and then it's
Yep.
like someone hit the pause button. The source even talks about how quickly their initial enthusiasm kind of crashed into all these setbacks and delays.
Right, and we can't forget the whole historical context here. This
Right.
wasn't a simple let's rebuild situation. The Jewish people were under the rule of the Persian Empire at that time, which came with, well, its own political baggage. Let's just say not everyone was exactly thrilled about a powerful temple rising again in Jerusalem.
It's like trying to remodel your kitchen when your landlord's not really on board. You've got permits, politics, the whole shebang.
Exactly. They faced opposition, interference, you name it. But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. Even with all those roadblocks, that deep-seated desire to rebuild, it never truly went away.
It really speaks to how powerful that pull towards something meaningful can be, even when the odds are stacked against you.
Absolutely. And the source does a great job of walking us through these different phases, really using the book of Ezra as its guide. We see everything from that initial glimmer of hope King Cyrus allows them to return, remember, to the long and winding road of actually getting the temple built. And then finally, its completion under King Darius.
Talk about a real-life example of perseverance. But there's this one question that keeps nagging at me. If they had this, divine support, this burning desire, why'd they ever stop in the first place? What caused that initial spark to fizzle out?
Right.
It's easier to stick with something when it's all, rah-rah, let's go.
Yeah.
But then life happens.
It's so true. The source actually digs into that whole idea. It even quotes Ellen White, who, as you might know, was a key figure in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. She wrote about how these builders, they had this incredible opportunity, like a golden ticket to rebuild. And they kind of let it slip through their fingers.
Wow. Makes you wonder what caused them to stumble. I mean, it's easy for us to look back and be like, come on, guys, you were so close. But haven't we all been there at some point? That moment when you start doubting, get distracted?
Hmm.
Life, right?
Yeah. It's those moments, when doubt creeps in, or just plain old human weakness, even when deep down we know we should be pushing forward.
And that's what gets me about these ancient temple builders. Because even with those, like, totally human moments of hesitation, even with the delays, they still persevered in the end.
They did. The source points to the prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, as playing a huge role in that whole turnaround. Think of them as like the original motivational speakers, urging the people to snap out of it, shake off those doubts, remember what they were working towards.
Talk about a pep talk. Let's get this temple built. But here's where things take a turn I did not see coming. King Darius, the new guy in charge, he doesn't just say, okay, fine, rebuild your temple. No, he offers to pay for the whole thing.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? And there's an even more interesting tidbit here. The source explains that King Darius, when making his decision, he relied on something pretty powerful: historical records.
Like,
Like, this wasn't just a random act of generosity. He literally consulted these ancient archives to confirm that, yep, there was a promise made, a precedent set, and it was time to make things right.
wow. Imagine a leader today making a decision based on, like, actual facts, historical context. What a concept.
Right. It really highlights how important it is to remember where we've been, to learn from the past.
Speaking of which, this whole story, it makes me think about this idea of stewardship. It's not just about, money and finances, right?
Exactly. The source dives into that, explains how stewardship, in this sense, it's about how we use all of our resources. Our time, our talents, our energy, everything. It even pulls a quote directly from the Seventh-day Adventist fundamental beliefs, which states that stewardship is recognizing that everything we have ultimately comes from God.
It's like taking stock of what we've been given and then using those gifts to make a difference. Just like those ancient builders pouring their skills and resources into creating something lasting.
Absolutely. It challenges us to ask ourselves, how are we contributing to our communities? Are we building something meaningful, something that will stand the test of time?
And let's be real, building anything worthwhile usually means dealing with some pushback along the way.
Oh, for sure. The source definitely doesn't shy away from that. It even asks us to think about a time when we might have faced resistance, when we were trying to do something good, something we believed in.
It reminds me of that verse from Joshua. Even when you're surrounded by people who just don't get it, the choice is still there. Do you serve? Do you do what's right, even when it's hard?
And it's not always easy, is it? But
Yeah.
that's where faith comes in, and perseverance. There's that powerful reminder in 1 Samuel. Even when we mess up, the call's still there. Show up, serve wholeheartedly, keep building.
It's that never give up attitude, that unwavering dedication that's so inspiring about this whole story. And it brings us back to that idea of unity and identity, doesn't it? The temple, it wasn't just about a building, was it? It was about a community coming together, combining their skills, their resources to create something truly amazing.
Exactly. And even when they face those hurdles, the delays, the doubts, the opposition, they never lost sight of that shared vision. The source even highlights a quote from Ellen G. White that really resonated with me. Even amidst the challenges, she writes, even when things feel uncertain, this much is sure: God is present. He's working alongside us. He's building with us.
It's a good reminder that we're not in this alone, whether we're talking about like actual buildings or the communities we're a part of, that sense that there's something bigger at play, it makes all the difference.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the source leaves us with a really important question to ponder. It asks, how can we labor in a way that leaves a lasting impact? How can we ensure that what we're building today will stand the test of time?
That's something I'll definitely be chewing on for a while. Because whether it's an ancient temple or the relationships we're building today, the work of creating something meaningful, something that lasts, well, that's a call to action for all of us, isn't it? To show up, to be present, to give it our all.